So yes, as Elizabeth said, I work in the food service industry, not in the museum industry. I'm going to introduce a little bit about myself. You're going to learn that I actually do have a BA in art history, which is the only time that this has ever been relevant in my career. It's right now. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me, what my experience has been, why I think it's applicable or important to museums, and the things that we've done that I think that maybe you can do. Some of them maybe you've heard already. And what the challenges were in implementing some of these green initiatives as well. This is my dog Vespa, and most of my presentations I end with her, but today I started with her because she has to listen to me practice these presentations over and over and over again. My boyfriend wants to know why I don't give him, why he doesn't get a picture in here, because he has to listen to them too, but she's just so much cuter. So don't tell him I said that. This isn't going live, is it? So I am the Director of Food Safety and Sustainability for all 20 restaurants. Like this part of the room too. These restaurants are, some of these, Lydia's Pittsburgh is one of our sister's restaurants right in Pittsburgh, so you may recognize some of them. Del Posto is our 4-star restaurant in New York City. We've got 3 in Vegas, 3 in Los Angeles, 1 in Newport Beach now, California. That's going to be a LEED certified building. And then the Mario Batali Foundation. We just did some work with the New York Botanical Gardens, which was very exciting. Back to Vespa. So Mario Batali is a celebrity chef. Joe Bastianich is his partner, and we have all these restaurants. I have a culinary background as well as an art history background, which I told you about. And this is all just relevant so that you might listen to what I have to say. I'm here to hopefully help bring in line your food service operations with the rest of what you do. I find that when I give these talks, it turns out that I actually don't really talk that much about food at all. I talk about the operations and the service of food. Museums seem to me to be about preservation. Similarly, gardens are the same way. And we want to preserve the earth so that we can have museums and gardens. So it seems that we would want all these things to be in line with each other. And again, I'm not a nutritionist or a registered dietitian, but I mean, we all know that school lunch, we want our kids to be fed well, we want our visitors to be fed well so they can pay attention and stay at the museum. As Elizabeth said to me, the museums, what is it, the museums keep them, the food keeps them there. They come to see the exhibit, but the food will keep them there or it'll send them home if it's not good. So, I wanted to also point out one of the things that's very important to me, and the reason that I think that the food service is really about the operations and not necessarily always about the food, and why I think this integration of museums and their food service operation is so important, is because you're sending conflicting messages. This is going to seem like a very simple example, but I'm staying at the Hampton Inn. I don't know if anyone else is staying there. And in all of the elevators and everywhere, they have these signs that are like, think about whatever, and this cup is, Sustainable Forestry Initiative, certified fiber sourcing, so when I washed my mouth this morning, I was very excited. And then I came down for breakfast, and everything was on styrofoam. So it's funny, but it's also the same thing, I feel like, in a museum. You are looking at this amazing, we're working on preserving, and then you go to the concessions or the food service, and it's similar. So we started by using the Green Restaurant Association. Does anybody know the Green Restaurant Association? A few of you do. I know a couple of the food service are certified by them. I am not here to push the Green Restaurant Association, but I do really like them. It worked really well for us. It gave people a common goal, something to work towards, and people like certifications. They like a symbol. What's also good about them is they're very transparent. You have to have a minimum of 100 points in these categories: water efficiency, waste reduction, recycling, sustainable food, energy, disposables, and chemical and pollution reduction. You have to have a minimum of 10 points in all of those categories. So I like to say you can't run the garden hose, in the back all day long and say we turn off the lights when we leave, because that's obviously not going to work. So we started at Del Posto. I'm going to take a deep breath. Hold on. Okay. We started at Del Posto. We started at Del Posto because it was our newest restaurant and because it had already had some green initiatives sort of built into the fiber of it. We were already composting. We had a commercial carter that came and take our composting away and then compost it and just take it. Strip curtains on the walk-ins. So that's a very simple one, but keeping cold air in and hot air out. And we did have a no bottled water policy, but we had this very antiquated way of bringing the water in, which I'll talk about a little bit later. We also noticed that there was tons of opportunities. Every time there's a candle on the table, you either have it's paraffin candle, it could be a soy or a beeswax candle. We had a ton of faucets. I had no idea, every faucet lets through 2.2 gallons per minute of water. You can reduce that to 0.5 gallon per minute. And that is great for both energy and water conservation. And ware washing, how you wash your utensils and things. Again, I know that this isn't necessarily about the food that you're serving, but it is all part of this system. We learned a lot of things. We learned that the front of house lighting was something we weren't willing to approach. Now, obviously, we're talking about food service, but I'm sure you can all identify. You can't just put in compact fluorescents in an exhibit because it would look terrible and nobody would want to see it. So it's the same thing. We don't want to dine under like a really bright, garish lighting. So, and that's also what I think is great about this Green Restaurant Association certification, is you can say, you know what, that's not something we can do. Let's do something else. Eco-friendly dish detergent. I think if you've ever seen my TEDx talk, I talk about how the guys were just free pouring 5 gallons of detergent into the pot sink. And I was like, what are you guys doing? They said, there's no suds. It's not working. I need more. And I was like, oh, no. It doesn't have suds because it doesn't have those chemicals. So you really need to make sure people know why they're doing this. And I talk about that as well. Composting. Much easier than we thought. We were already doing it at Del Posto, but when I started to introduce it to other restaurants, the chefs were like, I can't get these guys to not throw away the silverware. How am I going to possibly get them to divide the composting and the... Well, I did learn that it's much easier than a lot of other initiatives because people are like, oh, if I can eat it, it goes in here. If I can't eat it, it doesn't go in there. So there's things that were unexpectedly easier than we thought. To-go containers, I mean, I've given a few of these talks. I wish that by now I could say that to-go containers were not a challenge, but it's one of the biggest challenges I have. If I give you a compostable container and you take it home, but you don't have a worm bin in your backyard, not that that would even eat, worms would even eat these containers, but if your town doesn't compost municipally, what do you do with it? You throw it away. If I give you a plastic container that's not recyclable, maybe you'll reuse it. Maybe you don't. I don't know. A lot of it has to do with the end use. So it's been a real thorn in my side, these to-go containers. And then hand dryers, these energy efficient hand dryers, they're very loud, you see them everywhere. They had unanticipated benefits. We halved our paper towel usage. I don't know what museum goers do, but restaurant goers apparently love to throw their paper towels in the toilet. Do you have this problem? It clogs, we've got plumbing problems, whatever. I don't know why, it's not hard. I mean, one goes in the garbage, one doesn't. But it's been an issue, and since we have implemented hand dryers, we have half the problems with our plumbing. So we went from there to expand to other restaurants. I said we started at Del Posto. We moved on to that whole slide of all the other restaurants you saw. And it was easy. Now, I'm assuming some of you have multiple concession spots, or, it was easier to apply the tried and true the things that already work to the other restaurants. Hand dryers, done. Ware washing system, done. Getting rid of bottled water, done. And then we saw that in other places, like in Los Angeles, it's much easier to get green pest control. Much easier to find sustainable linen companies. I don't know if any of you have table service linen type, yeah. And then also, we were able to do recycled pizza boxes. The only reason we didn't do that at Del Posto is because they don't have pizza. And then we learned that if you start from the ground up, so if you're building something new, it's way easier. You just build these things into the fiber of the building. Occupancy sensors, so if you're not in the room, the light's not on. Equipment that's Energy Star, instead of having to retrofit, you already purchased the equipment, Energy Star. Lighting, that was an issue where we could build it into the fiber of the building, and we've come a long way in lighting so far. Aerators and spray valves, again, saving all that water. And we've built a few green walls, which are really nice and nothing compared to where we are right now, but small for a restaurant. And preferred parking, if you're in Los Angeles for things like hybrid vehicles or whatever, those are small steps you can take. Then we decided we need to get more creative. I mean, there's only so many talks I can give about hand dryers. So we joined Meatless Monday, and I think that Phipps maybe participates in that, or some of you would participate in that. Our chefs in Vegas created their own farmers market, which was pretty incredible. And then we did some staff education, movie screenings about sustainable seafood, movie screenings about wasting food, and then our LEED certification, which is pending for Mozza Orange County. So why should you care? You should care because Hamptons Inn says, take care, we owe it to one another. But you should also care, obviously, because these are things that I think that you guys can do. And in your own words, I read this thing. Does everybody read this, or did Elizabeth? In your own words, the museum identifies the communities it serves and makes appropriate decisions on how to serve them. And I wrote, don't feed them bad food or have a bad service operation that hurts the environment, because that's not in your community's best interest. And there was a ton of them. There was a few that I highlighted that under facilities that all work. So I listed some ideas that I thought might work for museums. Again, I don't work in the museum industry. Maybe some of them are already being done. This is one of my favorites. What's your staff eating on? If they're all eating on disposables with plastic knives and forks, that's hugely wasteful. We have all our guys eat at the same time or in 2 shifts, and then we wash all the dishes together, and they've used reusable utensils. Super easy. You don't even have to do anything, really. Paper products. When we first did the green stuff at Del Posto, we had all these colors. We had marigold and sage and the menu papers, and then somebody went to the designer and said, do you care if it's sunflower and not marigold? She was like, I don't care. So we were able to get 100% recycled sunflower, but not 100% recycled marigold. So you need to have that conversation. I don't know if anyone has ever heard that story about the guy whose mother always cut the end of the ham off before he baked the ham. Some of you are nodding. And he went and asked his mother, and his mother asked his grandmother. And it just turned out they were all doing it because the grandmother who started the trend, her pan wasn't big enough for the ham. So, so 3 generations were, I don't know if this is true or not, but we spent, we spent all this time trying to find the perfect color, and then we just went to the designer, and she's like, that yellow is good enough. So that communication is important. Obviously, things like what kind of toilet paper you're using, or if you are using paper towels, what kind of paper towels you're using. I talked a little bit about to-go containers. What's their purpose? Are people dining in the garden? Are they taking it home? Are they necessary? Can you use reusable ones? In the end, I talk about some incentives. I think that there's a lot of things that can be built around reusable containers for incentives. This is one of my huge pet peeves. Don't give me a container and then don't give me a place to get rid of it. I mean, besides the garbage. You need to have options, and you need to have clear signage. We have one of our stores, Italy. It's this giant store. We've got all kinds of containers and things. And people just don't know where to throw things away. Or people are always moving the garbage, like some of the store employees are moving the garbages behind them things because they're ugly. And then things just get trashed. This signage is so important. And I mean, similar in food service as in museums, sometimes signs are ugly, but they're kind of a necessary evil. You need to figure out a way to integrate that. Water, again, I mean, I can't stress enough. You've got, I'm sure even in the kitchen here, there's so many hand sinks. They don't need to have 2.2 gallons per minute of water coming out of them. Same with water fountains or things like that. If it's a fill sink, yes, you don't want, that's another challenge we had was we put 0.5 gallon per minute aerators on all our sinks, and then the busboys were standing there trying to fill a pitcher of water. And they were like, so they would just unscrew it. So you need to talk to your staff. Does this sink need to be a fill sink? Does it need to be or whatever? But there's a lot of opportunity to save water. Lighting. This is a slide that I picked because we did a sample of a non-eco-friendly sort of lighting and a so obviously for us at Del Posto, this isn't an option. But we have looked at some halogens with triple filtered this, that, and the other thing. There are more options now. There are options to get lighting audits through, in New York it's NYSERDA, but I'm sure there's something here as well. Or I assume you're not all from Pittsburgh, wherever you are. A retrofit, there are things that can be done. Chemicals. Again, this is another thing. How does your staff like it? When we did finally get the guys to stop free pouring with all the suds, we found that they had fewer rashes under their gloves. They liked the chemicals a lot better. And some of them took a little more elbow grease because they didn't have the chemicals, but they were happier with the results. So again, the people who are, you can't implement these successfully if the people who are using them aren't behind you or don't understand why. Here, I do talk briefly about food. I don't know if my Ming Dynasty vase actually exists, but it seems like you put so much time and attention and thought into where the vase comes from. Was it procured ethically? Am I displaying it properly? Why wouldn't we do the same thing with where our food is from? I mean, it's in the same facility. I put the picture on the left in because this was for Earth Day one year. One of our restaurants did an entire nose-to-tail pig plate. So he used every part of the pig, and we got a lot of flack for that. They're like, how is that Earth Day? You know, I think it's great, and but this is my point. You can be green. You can start by doing either only sustainable seafood, or you can start by offering nose to tail. There's lots of ways to do this. It's not all or nothing, although it definitely isn't styrofoam for breakfast. And yeah, so. Again, the hand dryers, I sort of touched on this already. There are secret benefits to some of these green initiatives that you would never have thought of. And again, most importantly, education and signage. This stuff won't work if your staff's not behind it. And if the customers or the guests don't understand why you're doing it. And then I normally end with Vespa, but I liked this, this poster. And again, I just think that things like either reusable containers, or although reusable bags are becoming my new pet peeve, because if I give you a reusable bag instead of giving you a plastic bag, but you keep taking the reusable bags, you just have a lot of reusable bags instead of a lot of plastic bags. So there needs to be incentives. People can bring their own containers. Meatless Mondays, I think, is another no-brainer that's so easy. Even if people don't buy the vegetarian entree, it's a statement that on Mondays, or one day a week, that you believe that this is something that could work. Internal and external contests about, you know, slogans or programs or initiatives, I think it really gets morale up and people interested in, and then, you know, other kinds of promotions and things that I'm sure you're all. And that's it.